The main character's name is Neil. This year he turned 20 years old. 7 years ago when he was 13. They wanted to send him to an orphanage, but fortunately, a friend of his father sheltered him and allowed him to live in his house. That day he had a new wonderful family. In his new family, almost everyone accepted him well, and now he is already 20 years old, and he still lives with them. It was a normal morning. He met his sister Mia, who was brushing her teeth. Mia is the eldest daughter in the family. She is a college student, and just like her older sister, she always takes care of Neil. Neil gets along well with her. Going downstairs he sees his Uncle Ronald and aunt. Uncle Ronald was his father's colleague and good friend. Neil is very grateful to him for adopting him and allowing him to live in his house with his family, as well as his Aunt June. Aunt June is always diligent and devoted to her family. Aunt Neela is like an angel who takes care of this family with love and understanding. Aunt asked Neil to get up and tell the sled to come down, but Sani, the last person you haven't been introduced to yet, Sani is a year older than Neil. She was the youngest before he joined the family. She is 21. Neil came into her room and said that her aunt was calling her to eat, but she said she wasn't hungry. Sunny Nuna always preferred to be alone in the dark in her room. After so many years, Neil still doesn't know how to get along with Sunny Nuna. Neil went downstairs and told his aunt that Sunny refused to eat. So aunt was worried, because this is not the first time. They began to eat, and Neil thought to himself, this is the place where I live, this is a warm and very comfortable home. Neil went outside to his friend. His friend's name was Gobong. The Gobong is Neil's classmate who lives near Neil's house. He was always bullied by his classmates. Neil felt sorry for him, and then he decided to make friends with him, and so they became best friends. Then, after Neil told him that he did not see and should not see them, and later in the night, he couldn't sleep because he only thought about the panties. He got up and went to drink water, but suddenly he heard some incomprehensible sounds. Following the sounds, he saw that these sounds came from the open room of his aunt and uncle. The uncle decided to play with his wife in bed. He began to rub his aunt's toy, and then the aunt could not resist and began to play with him. They both enjoyed the game while Neil watched them. He knew he couldn't do it, but his body didn't want to move. What he was watching, he did not even understand what was happening there. And yet he was able to move from his place and return to his room. Then he lay down on his bed and began to think, this is all for real. This is what the bad guys at school were talking about. Is this really a cupcake? I better fall asleep quickly. He fell asleep, but woke up in the morning and noticed that for some reason he became wet during the night. He immediately got up and ran to put his clothes in the laundry basket so that no one would see him. Neil was afraid of being caught. Aunt went to the market for vegetables in the morning. It was a good idea. She took fresh tomatoes. Neil began to eat and thought to himself, now I'm ashamed to look into my aunt's face. It's good that my uncle is not here. Neil's aunt was about to do laundry and noticed that Neil had wet dreams last time. He often had such dreams, and she noticed it. Aunt began to think to herself, Neil became an orphan very early and could not develop normally like everyone else. Someone should teach him, but I'm worried my husband will be a bad teacher. What should I do? As for my friends, the only one who worries about Neil is that guy named Gobong. The Gobong and Neil met. They stood in front of the shop and waiting for their food. Neil asked the Gobong, Gobong, do you know anything about cake? The Gobong, not expecting such a question, became very embarrassed and almost shouted this word to the whole street. But he calmed down and said, well, this is what only bad guys do. We are not like them. Neil answered him, I knew it, I was just curious. Several hours passed. The Gobong and Neil walked around the area and went home. It was already late and Neil was about to go to bed, but he thought, phew, I need to get a good night's sleep. My thoughts are confused. I can't forget the expression on my aunt's face that night. Thinking about this, my aunt suddenly came into his room. She brought him some fruit, but she wasn't going to leave. She asked him if they could talk about something. Then he told her yes. Aunt sat on the bed and started a conversation. Auntie had already guessed before and said to him, to be honest, I guess Neil, you're a big boy now. You should know about it. Aunt June will teach you. Do you want me to teach you? Neil asked. Is it normal for an adult to do this sort of thing? Aunt said that this is of course normal. Then he asked, what, did uncle do the same thing? Aunt said that he also did this. Aunt thought to herself, he really doesn't know anything. I have no other choice but to teach him. While thinking about it, Neil suddenly stated, just like you said, me too. I want to learn. There was no other way for my aunt. As soon as everything was over, she would no longer have anything to teach him. She showed him another way to play. Aunt teaching him this thought. Will he think of me that I'm strange? No, everything is fine even if it is. I don't care as long as Neil can learn. He is already an adult. I hope he doesn't have any more problems with this. When suddenly her face was in something incomprehensible, Neil immediately realized that he did and ran to take a rag to wipe it off. He apologized for what he had done for a long time, but his aunt did not blame him for anything. But aunt said that Neil did a great job. Neil asked if adults really do this every day, to which aunt told him that not every day, but it needs to be done. Aunt also told Neil that he needs to do this so that he was healthy. And that's how one secret appeared between Neil and his aunt. Everything happened as the aunt expected. Neil did not know anything. Neil is a very kind guy and doesn't have many friends around him. It's like he grew up alone in a big castle, not knowing everything that surrounds him. His aunt was glad that she had taught him this in time, but the aunt, even after she returned to her room, could not stop thinking about him, because she could not understand how he could be so big. Although aunt was naive, thinking that nothing had changed since childhood. Morning came, and Uncle Ronald was still not there. Aunt was a little ashamed of what happened yesterday, but she did not show it. Neil, after having breakfast, returned to his room and began to think. Uncle will return tomorrow, so when he returns, he will also play with Aunt June. But what I saw then, he did not pretend to play. Maybe it was a cupcake. I thought cupcake was only for bad guys, but I didn't expect them to do that too. Neil got a bump again and went to see his aunt. He said that he could not do it himself, no matter how hard he tried. He did not succeed. Then Aunt June decided that she would help him. At one moment Neil's toy was very tired and already flooded with water. He did not have time to stop and flooded his aunt again. Aunt told him he wasn't worried and she would wipe everything herself so he could go to bed. Aunt June just finished cleaning after the first game and thought that everything was over, but Neil suddenly returned to her and asked her for help again. He was very hurt. Aunt was worried, and now they were back on the bed. The game started again, and now everything was approaching the victory of the Nile. He completed his game with a victory and again flooded everything with something. But Aunt was not angry with him for this. She told him, "You are done well, but I repeat what we were doing now. Do you understand?" He said he understood everything. And then the next morning came, the aunt washed and hung things, and the sister tried on new outfits. Nilu himself fed the kittens with his friend and went home. Uncle Ronald was away again, as he has a lot of work, but he will arrive tomorrow. It was getting dark outside, and my aunt was getting ready for bed. She thought to herself, for some reason I can't sleep, thinking today Neil will sleep soundly and nothing will happen. But suddenly Neil came into her room and said that he needed her help again. The aunt agreed to help him again. They went so far, and just after that Neil won. He finished everything on the bed again. In the morning Uncle Ronald returned with sweets. Mia immediately flew up to her father and took the peanut muffins from him. That day, Auntie June noticed that Nilu became very thoughtful. Mia was taking a shower, and after that she was heading to her room, but she was stopped by Nilu and asked if he could find out something from her. She told him to go to her room. He said, "Nuna, I'm sorry to ask you this, but can you help me play?" Aunt thought to herself, since my husband came back, Nil hasn't approached me. Yes, I've already taught him Mangam. He's already a big boy, and he has to find the solution himself. And Mia, after hearing her brother's request, she laughed and asked if he was serious about asking. Then he said, "I tried to do it myself, but I can't do it." "I thought you could help." Sister Mia told him. "Oh, you little rascal, do you even know what it is?" He told her that all adults should do it, and if I want to be healthy, then I need it. Sister asked him who told him that, and he told her that it was his Gobong friend. Neil started to think to himself, sorry, Gobong, but I can't tell her that it was Aunt John. I promised to keep everything in secret. Mia then asked him what she should do for him, and he replied that she should just lie down and he would do the rest. Mia told him to make it faster because she wanted to rest some more. Mia started to think to herself, this little one, he wants to do it by watching my feet. Not thinking it's a good idea. I think it's all the influence of the Gobong that made Nil so weird. All of a sudden she noticed how he was touching her toy and turned sharply towards him. She noticed that his toy was naked and was embarrassed by what she saw. She turned again and said, "It doesn't matter, do what you came for and leave." But she thought to herself, but how can he be so big? Although, right, he is 20 years old. He is already an adult. I need not be surprised. He didn't understand what had just happened and thought it was just a game. Then Mia said that as soon as he got into her base, it was already a cupcake. Nilu went back to his room completely exhausted and started thinking, Fua, how did this happen? I just wanted to play with her. How did it turn into a cupcake? Only bad guys do it just like that. Wait now, so I have to marry Mia, but I don't know what happened today, but it was very good. It was morning the next day. Aunt called all the children to eat. As soon as Neil left the room, he ran into Mia. She gave him a crack and said, "Fool, if you don't hurry, then I'll eat all the most delicious." In the evening of the same day, Neil came to Mia's room. He entered the room and Mia asked, "Well, what do you want? Are you going to do something with me again?" He sheepishly replied that no. He was just curious about something. So he came to ask her. Then they sat on the bed and he asked his question. His question was, Can I play with you again that game that was yesterday?" Sunny was sitting at the computer late at night again. And suddenly she wanted to eat. She went downstairs, and on the way staring at Neil's door when she got to the kitchen her mom came over during her late night snack. Sunny said she just wanted a sandwich. Her mom said, "If you eat at night, you can ruin your stomach." But the Sunny said it was alright. And asked to be left alone. There was a conversation going on in Mia's room. Mia said menacingly, "Hey little one, speak straight, what the hell are you thinking about?" Then Nilu said, "Well, yesterday you said that we had a cupcake, but, in fact, I didn't even understand how it happened. Since you said that we did it, so it turns out, what are you going to have a baby now? And if now you're pregnant, I thought we could do it again. Because now it won't be bad, to be honest. I don't know exactly what happened yesterday, and I feel bad about it. So I'd like to know what a cupcake is for real." Mia moved closer to him and said, Look at him, so that's what you want. So, to put it simply, do you want to do it with me again, you brat? Tell me, what is a cupcake for you?" Nilu replied, Nuna, okay, cupcake, only needed to have kids. If you just do it the way we did before, it's bad." Mia said, "Haha, my god, baby, you have the wrong idea about such an important little thing. Saying cupcake is so bad, ha, you've been weird since you started hanging out with the gobong. Neil, I'll teach you everything. So listen carefully. You know, a cake is." After that, she began to explain to him in words and fingers what a cake is, and how tasty it can be. What fillings it comes with. After listening, he asked if she was telling him the truth. She answered him that everything he knew before was wrong. Neil said, "How can this be? I think cupcake is bad. No matter how many times you do it, it will be considered normal, and everyone does it. I can't believe it's not bad. If a man and a woman love each other, then they can do cupcake at any time." Mia thought it was cute and said, "Poor Neil. That's all? You're so upset because you're not very popular with the girls. You probably won't get a chance to bake a cupcake again soon. You said you don't remember how you did it to me yesterday, huh? What do we do now? Do after what we already had? Do you want me to do it again?" Neil said, "Really, Nuna? Can we do it again?" Mia replied, "That's wrong. But since it's already happened, there's no point in refusing. I really don't care if it's once or twice. Now step by step, I'll teach you everything." Neil was overjoyed and agreed with the mission. Mia didn't understand how it all came to this. Mia couldn't even believe she was doing this to Neil. Neil wanted to touch Mia's toys, but she stopped him and said, "Yesterday you pretended not to know anything about this and deliberately put a toy in mine." It was nighttime and the Sunny was eating her sandwich in the kitchen listening to music. And in Mia's room, conversations continued over the cupcake. Neil said, "Mia, what do you mean? I really didn't know anything." Mia laughed and said, "It's true. My little brother couldn't think of something like that. Just yesterday, everything was so sudden that I didn't have time to do anything. So today." At the moment when Neil was leaving Mia's room, he crossed paths with the Sunny, who was returning from the kitchen. Neil began to panic and tried to justify himself to her. But Sunny told him to get out of the way and added that she hadn't asked him anything. After Neil left Mia's room, she still felt unsatisfied and began to play with the toy. She thought to herself, "I haven't had a cupcake for a long time. But why did it have to be Neil? What am I supposed to do now?" The next morning, Mia woke up and started thinking on her way to the kitchen. What the hell? I still couldn't sleep. What the hell is happening to me? Probably it's because I haven't had cake and so I felt unsatisfied. It's just ridiculous. What should I do now? I don't even know. She reached the kitchen and her mother asked her why she was so late. Then she said that she did not sleep at all last night. And all of a sudden she noticed the Sunny. She asked her, "God, what miracles? Why are you so early?" Sunny said she just needed to get to the library early. Father had not seen his girls at the table together like this for so long that he was delighted. During breakfast, Mia discreetly looked at Neil and thought, "In a way, now he is the only one who can satisfy my desires. But I don't know how to tell him to do this to me. Why did everything become so difficult?" And so, after dinner, the Sunny went to the library, and her father went on a business trip. Mia came up with a cunning plan and went to her mother. She began to ask her if she needed to go anywhere. She began to think of places where she would need to go and said, "Dad is on a business trip, and I think we should cook something tasty for his return." But her mother answered her that they seemed to be full of food. Then Mia said, "Mom, we don't have meat in our